Hi, my name is Tambre, Leighn, and I'm a certified professional coach and founder of Well Beyond Ordinary. I've also been a highly active patient and caregiver advocate for over a decade, primarily in the breast cancer community. Prior to working as a coach and being an advocate, I was in the film industry for years with my late husband. But when he was diagnosed with cancer, I became his caregiver. And when I lost him to cancer, I really made it my mission to use advocacy as a way to improve things for the patients and for caregivers. One of the things that I've been very heavily involved in is doing grant reviews for cancer research. And I feel it's really important for panels that are doing grant reviews, either at organizations such as the American Cancer Society or, for example, OHSU at Knight Cancer Center in Portland, Oregon, where I'm a volunteer, because it gives the voice of the patient and the caregiver a place in the room. So we have an opportunity to provide insights into what we feel is important to be researched, looking at some of the protocols that are involved in certain research trials, and making it more patient-friendly so that we can ensure that we reduce some of the barriers to clinical trials that have kept people out in the past. When I lost my husband, I really lost my purpose in life. I didn't really have something that I cared about that much anymore. And when I started to think about the process that we went through, and I saw that there was a way for me to make a difference and take some of the lessons that I learned while supporting him through the process of his cancer care, I felt like I had a reason to continue on and a way that I could make a difference in the world. So I've used that personal experience in order to bring awareness to some of the struggles and challenges, fears and concerns that happen for the caregivers, and then also the things that I learned from my late husband as well. Back in 2011, I received an email one day from a marketing organization that was inviting me to pay to attend a patient summit being put on for and by the pharmaceutical companies. And I was quite surprised when I went through the agenda to discover that the patient summit that was supposedly all about patients and the patient experience actually had no patient or caregiver advocate speakers. And so I wrote them back a nice email and let them know that I wouldn't be attending. And I also recommended that perhaps in the future, they consider adding a panel that would give some of the industry professionals a chance to talk to patients and caregivers about their experience and learn directly from them. Now, kudos to the organization, because a year later, I received an email from them inviting me to come on board and advise them in setting up their first panel for their upcoming summit. And so that's really changed the paradigm that they were using prior to that. It's really important to have the patient voice included, whether that's from the caregiver perspective or the patient, because there are insights and experiences that they have that can really benefit healthcare professionals and pharmaceutical companies in listening to the stories, the challenges, and the needs of the people who actually walk the path of going through their treatments. When it comes to educating about clinical trials, if we're going to improve access and we're going to remove barriers to the clinical trials, then we need to start with making sure that the educational materials are ones that have had input from patients and advocates from a wide range of backgrounds. And we make sure that the educational materials are speaking in a culturally appropriate way to the community that you're trying to educate and bring on board. So, and this means down to the literal translation of making sure that we have materials available in different languages. So creating educational opportunities and access through resources that meet the patient where they are, that talk about their particular concerns and that take into account their culture and the history with the healthcare system in their culture, so that we can address disparities, we can address fears, and have straight conversations with them, is really critical if we're going to reach more people. Over the past 10 years, I've had the opportunity to coach thousands of patients, caregivers, and healthcare professionals. And the one barrier that stops everybody from moving forward when they're stuck is fear. Of course, it's understandable that if you're thinking about a clinical trial for yourself or your loved one, that you would have fears about it. There's one way to break through fear, and that's to get educated. So make a list of your fears, make a list of your questions, and then get in touch with an expert who can answer those. That's how you and your loved one can make an informed choice about a treatment that may be an excellent opportunity for you. There's a lot of extra hats that go on the head of the caregiver, and yet within the healthcare system and the insurance system, unless we become ill, we remain pretty invisible. And the American Association of Retired Persons has done a study in 2017 that showed that an estimated 34 billion hours every year is done by caregivers here in the United States for their loved ones that they're not paid for. And that totals about $470 billion worth of caregiving services. And yet there's not much there for us. So there's a very big imbalance in that way. In the early days of losing my husband, I really struggled. Working through the grief, going through the grieving process was extremely difficult. And one of the things that I found to be helpful was journaling. I eventually started writing for an organization called Open to Hope. And that is a very well-known national grief-based organization that has wonderful writers featured on their website where you can go and read stories about people who've been through similar loss to you. Eventually, I turned that into writing for myself on my own blog, and I continue to write to this day. So if writing is something that you love, you may find it a very helpful tool, not only to help others, but also to help yourself. There's something about the writing process and storytelling that is extremely healing. And it's also a great way to preserve the memories of the person that you loved.